Welcome to episode 8 of Beer with Alan. I'm Alan and I've had over 3,500 different beers since I started tracking back in 2014. I use the app called Untapped to track, so look me up there under Beer with Alan to see the beers I've tried. Send me a friend request on there if you're interested. Today, I have two of my good friends who are into beer ready to do a roundtable on a bunch of different categories about our favorite beverage. When I had my friend Ron on in episode 2, I mentioned our group text, which is mostly about beer. These guys, Scott and Andrew, are also part of that group. Before we get to that, here is the regular rundown. My current beer count is 3,557. The count has grown slowly in recent weeks. I guess I've been going back to some old favorites a little more. But 3,600 will come before too long. I'm still thinking about what to do for that one. If you have any great ideas, send me a message. The best new beer since the last episode. This was one I actually made a video about. It was a collaboration between two of my very favorite breweries, Firestone Walker from Paso Robles, California, and Boulevard Brewing from Kansas City, Missouri. They're both part of Duvel Moortgat from Belgium. I got to visit Duvel's brewery back on my Belgium trip, back in July. Maybe it was still June at the time I was at Duvel. But it was a great place, really cool. That's where they make the famous Duvel Golden Ale. But the brewery owns a number of different breweries in Belgium and also a few here in the U.S., and these are two of them. The beer that I had, that I made the video about, was called Barrel Hound's Grand Cru. And it's a blend of 4 different Firestone Walker beers and 4 different Boulevard beers that were all stouts and barley wines. The blended beer was then aged for a while longer in bourbon barrels. This was a fantastic beer that I really enjoyed. On the running front, as far as my recent good runs, the last few weeks have mostly just been my usual places. The best was probably when I went to the Cross County Trailhead in Plymouth Meeting and ran down that to where it joins the Schuylkill River Trail in Conshohocken. I then went west on that trail for a bit before heading all the way back. Someday the Cross County Trail is supposed to get all the way out to the Pennypack Trail in eastern Montgomery County, which then joins to the Newtown Rail Trail and goes well up into the center of Bucks County. I'd love to be able to run that. For my next marathon plans, I have now officially registered for the Shamrock Marathon in Virginia Beach, Virginia. This one is in March. I think it's like the 21st or something. So my mileage won't need to bump up until December for my race training, which is really good, as I was dreading doing the big mileage training runs in this humidity. The other race I was considering was the Rehoboth Beach Marathon, and my training would have had to start last week for that. And that would have been bad news. It's still just so warm and humid, and I do so badly in the heat and humidity when I'm running these days. So bumping up the mileage to the 18, the 20, the 22 mile runs while it was still quite warm out, it was something I was really dreading. So now I don't have to start any of it until December, and I'll do it through the winter. Hopefully I won't lose my long run places because of snow for long stretches of time, but we'll see. I always have places that I can do the runs even if they're not in my ideal places. Now, I posted a thing asking for recommendations for breweries and restaurants in the Virginia Beach area, and I got a ton of responses. So thank you all for that. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I can get a place announced in advance, like one of the places that I'm going to stop and go have a beer, so people can join me somewhere for a beer or two. Sports. It's almost football season, everybody. The Eagles and Penn State are having their training camps. I just can't wait. I love football season. It's my favorite time of year. I love both the NFL and college football. And the Eagles are expected to have a good season this year. Penn State's in a bit of a transition with a new coach, so we'll see. But I think they should still be good. For the other kind of football, Leeds United has their opening match this weekend. I'm hopeful for a solid improvement this year. We'll see. Last year, the first year back in the Premier League, and they did well enough to stay up. This year, I'm hoping that they can continue to get better. Got a new goalkeeper, and that should help. That should make a difference. So very excited for the season. As my currently playing local teams go, the Phillies have picked it up a bit and are looking pretty good right now. They would appear to have a shot at the division, but if not, they're in a good spot for the wild card. And the Philadelphia Union of MLS have been way better since the World Cup break. They only had one win and four draws against 10 losses before the break. In the 5 games they've played since the break, they have 4 wins and 1 draw. So that is just a great improvement. As far as upcoming trips go, we are headed to Penn State. The opening game is on September 5th, Saturday, so we'll be up there from the 4th to the 6th. We'll obviously be going to the football game, but we'll go to a few other places while we're there, which will include a brewery or two. I hope I see some of you there. Okay, so everybody, I am here today with two of my good friends. As I mentioned earlier, they are part of our ongoing beer group chat, group text, whatever we want to call it. It's been going on for a long time now. But these are my friends, Scott and Andrew. And I will tell you a tiny bit about them. They can tell you more about themselves if they like. But we're here. We're just going to talk about a few categories about beer today, a little bit of a roundtable thing. They are both beer fans. They have both professed to not be maybe a beer lunatic like I am, or they don't center their lives quite as much around beer as I do. But anyway, Scott, what do you want to tell us about yourself?
Okay, that's a really good question. I like beer, which is part of why I'm on here, and part of why I like beer is probably Alan's fault and Andrew's fault and Ron's fault from an earlier podcast, as everybody might know. I'm a writer, a fiction writer, an English professor, and this is that's really the exciting stuff.
All right, Andrew, what do you got?
My name's Andrew, believe it or not. I've known these guys for very long. I was trying to figure out exactly how long. I'll say close to 30 years to kind of average it out. Um, my background is in design. Mostly I do design, book design, technical literature, graphic design, and also love beer. Um, and happy to be here. Happy to be talking about beer. Happy to be drinking some beer.
Awesome.
And it's great to
I'm
be here.
glad to have you here. And on that note, that's the other thing I'd like to start with as far as what beer we're drinking today during the podcast. If you watched my video from earlier today, I talked about the beer that I chose for this podcast. It is called Still a Different Build from Horace Aged Ales in California. I think maybe Oceanside, California. I could have that wrong. But anyway, this is a kind of beer that I would say I've never had before. The style of it, Untapped calls it a strong ale. It is strong. Horace calls it a Christ ale. So like crystal with an E on the end and a capital A there in the middle or close to the middle, which is I believe it's supposed to be a cross between a barley wine and a wee heavy or a Scotch ale. It leans into use of crystal malts in the style. This is a 14.4% beer that was aged for 3.5 years or so, 41 months, I think, in a variety of different bourbon barrels. It is really good. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Andrew, what are you drinking?
I'm drinking, and I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce this.
Eyinger.
Eyinger. Um, it's a Weizenbach, and I'm drinking this. I'm not sure that I have had. I know I haven't had this. I'm not sure what, if any, Weizenbach I've had. I don't specifically remember any. This one was given to my son earlier in the month on my birthday, along with some other things, and it's not super strong. I think it's like 7 or 8%. But this will link in nicely to something we'll be discussing a little bit later, I think. I wanted to see what it was like, so I'd be a little bit informed about something else I wrote or planned to speak about. And it's also, well, it's only 7%. And it's funny to say that because we typically skew a little bit higher in the ABV. It's a pint. So maybe that makes up for it.
Yeah,
I don't know that I'll
perhaps.
finish the whole thing.
Einger's a great brewery.
Uh,
They
but
true
that's
German
it.
brewery, of course. They make a great Doppelbock, and everything I've had from them has been really good. Um, very good stuff. How about you, Scott?
I'm drinking a beer called Rye on Rye from Boulevard. They're in Kansas City, and it's 13.2%, which is
That's it.
which does the job generally speaking, and and it's 15 IBUs, which isn't a rating that I kind of knew about years ago. And I see more and more beers listing that kind of thing on their labels, and I've
Yeah, it's because
discovered
you don't
that.
really use Untapped, because
Yeah.
Untapped lists the IBUs for pretty much everything.
So part of what I do when I shop for beer is I know I like lower IBUs just generally. There's exceptions, and it's fantastic. Boulevard is one of my favorite breweries. Not that I know everything about breweries, but the beers from them I almost always like.
Yeah, they're fantastic. And I've talked about them a bunch on my videos and stuff like that. Did you, can you figure you'd be in a podcast of three people, be drinking a 13.2% beer, and you would be more than a percent below the highest one?
I expected that only because I know
On with
I
me?
know
Not a
who I'm
surprise.
on the video with, but no. Normally, you tell someone you're having a beer like this, and first of all, people don't even know what the percentage of beer is. Oh, what is it? 5? They don't know,
Right,
but they know 13's too high.
right. Yeah. A lot of times people say to me, wait, 13%, is that even
Yeah.
beer? Like,
Yeah.
I never really understand that, but
Yeah. Or they taste it and then their reaction is usually wide eyed and they go
What?
like, whoa, like, what did you pour in
yeah.
this?
I've probably mentioned this to you before, and I don't know if you've had it yet. But Boulevard makes an alternate version of that beer called Rye on Rye on Rye, which is a two different rye barrels used to age that beer, and it's fantastic,
You
really good.
have mentioned it before, and I feel at this point that I'm being teased because I've not seen it anywhere or
Mm-hmm.
been able to find it. And so, if you come across a bottle,
I'll have to ask the Boulevard people, see if I can get something sent this way.
I've never even seen rye on rye here. I've never seen that. I've seen rye, but it's not beer.
All right, so we're going to move on to our first category, and so we've got 5 different categories to talk about, and we're just going to kind of go around the group and state our answer to that particular question and just discuss it as we go. So the first one is a nice easy layup. It is, what's your favorite beer? And I'll start, and I'll be brief on mine because I've talked endlessly about my favorite beer in videos, although I could go on about it quite a lot more. It's St. Bernardus Abt 12. St. Bernardus being a brewery from Watou, Belgium, and Abt 12 being their Belgian quad, sometimes known as just a Belgian strong dark ale. To me, as I've said in some of these videos, every time I drink that beer, for a moment at least, I think, why doesn't every beer taste like this? Just seems like it should. I've never had one that's better. So there's my answer. Andrew.
Now this is a tough one. I'll have to apologize a little bit ahead of time because several of my answers will be like this. It's very hard to pick a single beer. It's like saying, who's your favorite drummer? Who's the best drummer?
I can answer both of those.
So yeah. So um, the one of my favorites is and it's nothing fancy. It's Kronenberg 1664 Blanc. Now that is one that's sentimental. I love it because the first time I had it, we were seeing my son for the first time in Denmark, where he was going to school. After 5 months, it was a beautiful, beautiful day in the springtime, and my wife and daughter we traveled to visit, and we were all drinking it, and it was a really great beer, super refreshing, beautiful day. So I can't disassociate it with that memory. It's a little bit skewed. Um, that said, currently, and my favorites change all the time, depends on the season. I have a couple triple Carmelit, which is something I only had for the first time a few years ago. I think you, one or both of you were there, and I thought it was fantastic. And only within maybe the past possibly year or less have they actually had it nearby where I can actually buy it. Another one, which
I'm
is
holding up
there
the
you go.
glass for
Yep,
triple
I
Carmelit
recognize.
right now.
Yeah, beautiful. Scott turned me on to this other one, Brother Thelonious. Um, every time I drink that, it's sort of the same reaction. It wouldn't be the only thing I drink, but I drink it and I go just like, however they figured this out was exactly the
Yeah,
right way.
that's
And three
North Coast
philosophers,
Brewing, by the way, Brother
North Coast,
Thelonious.
and three philosopher,
Mm.
right? Three philosophers by Alma Gang. Um, it's again hard to pick a favorite during the summer, during the day. It's hot. I'll defer to Triple Carmelit or 1664 right now.
Okay. Well, I like those answers. Kronenberg 1664 Blanc was a surprise for me because so when I went to Paris in 2015, I guess, and so there was not much of a beer scene happening in Paris, at least not the places I was going. So what you could count on at every single restaurant, and they had lots of wine. Sure, yeah, it's great wine in Paris. Most restaurants that I went to had one beer, and it was Kronenbourg 1664, not the Blanc, just the regular one. It's basic,
Mm-hmm.
pale Euro lager. It's fine. It's not something I'm overly motivated to drink. And if they had anything better than that or different than that, it was Grimbergen Rouge, which was like a red beer, like a cherryish kind of beer. And so if they had that, I would order it. I don't love the Rouge beers, but it was okay. And it was better than 1664. And then several years later, I ran into the 1664 Blanc at a French restaurant called Gabby in Philadelphia. And I was initially hesitant to order it because I was like, well, it's 1664. But there was nothing on the menu that I wanted to order. And I was like, well, it's a Blanc. Maybe it's a little bit different. I tried it. It was quite good. I enjoyed it. Very nice. Good experience. Triple Carmelite I first had at a restaurant in Santa Monica, California. I had never heard of it at that point, and I was very impressed by it. Yeah. And Brother Thelonious, brief story on that one. I have made videos even about this, about the fact that the Disney parks generally are not great places for beer. In some of them, like Epcot and California Adventure, there's lots of beer, lots of styles of beer. But when compared to most of the places that I go all the time that have huge beer lists, you're still pretty limited in what you're finding in the Disney parks. But in California Adventure, there's a little wine country trattoria, I think it's called. It's just like an outdoor seating area and a stand. You can order some snacks and wine. And then on the one side of it, they had some beer. And I was stunned. This was 4 or 5 years ago. To walk up to that and find Brother Thelonious on draft in a Disney park.
Draft.
Yeah.
Never seen it on
Yeah.
draft. Barely
And
see it in bottles.
I was very pleased. And I was then walking around California Adventure just drinking a Brother Thelonious. And I thought, well, you know what? It doesn't get much better than that.
Nice.
Scott,
nice.
how about you?
I need to throw a couple of callbacks to what we were just talking about before I get to my favorite beer. So first of all, the first time I think I tried Carmelite was at Jessup's with you all, and I had never heard of it before, and it's a wonderful triple. I really, really enjoy it. So there's that. And I discovered Brother Thelonious at my local store. I've been a huge fan of Thelonious Monk, the jazz pianist, for a long, long time. I often listen to Thelonious Monk while writing and doing other kinds of things. And that's what got my attention, obviously. The label's beautiful. It's a picture of Thelonious Monk playing the piano, and he's like in a raptured state of, making this beautiful music, and they call it Brother Thelonious. And actually it says on the bottle, I haven't verified it, but it says in the bottle that they donate a percentage of the money they make to jazz education. So it's a really cool beer, and it's also like I think 9.4% or so. So it packs a little bit of a wallop. I really like it. But if I had to pick, my favorite beer is not what I think is the best beer. I mean, like Andrew, I think I go through sort of periods where there's certain beers I drink more than others. Unlike you, I don't really track, Alan. I don't really track the number of different beers I drink. I do love to try different beers, especially when you tell me about them or Ron tells me about them or something. But I don't specifically seek out. If I see something, like, oh, I'll try that. But if I see something I love, I just like, I'll get that. I know I love it. So, in this time of year, I've really been enjoying Rumspringer from Broad Street Brewing. I just think it's a good triple. But since I'm talking about Boulevard, I'm drinking Rye on Rye today, which I think is fantastic. But I bought it because I'd like to have it in the house anyway. But I bought it because they didn't have Bourbon Barrel Quad, which probably is
Mhm.
my favorite / go-to beer when I want something that's on the strong side. I think it's about
Mhm.
12%. It's dark. It's barrel aged, which many things Boulevard does is barrel aged, and I'm kind of the opinion at this point that everything should be barrel aged. I think they should start barrel aging pizza. So I really enjoy it. It has enough carbonation that you feel it, but it's not what I think of as a highly carbonated beer. I've never had it where I didn't enjoy it, so that's kind of probably my favorite beer.
That's a great one. Well, it's funny. My head immediately goes to, and this is one of the reasons I love beer and I love talking about beer is I'll hear about a beer that I know and I like, and I'll immediately think about the first time I had that beer, like I mentioned with Andrew's beer, and I think of Bourbon Barrel Quad. Boulevard does a lot of bourbon barrel or various barrel stuff, but that's not recent, but it used to be a little bit more unusual for them. They had what they called the Smokestack series, and that was like their special beers. It wasn't part of, and I think maybe you still see some things marked as Smokestack series, but in
Rye on Rye is.
Yeah, absolutely. And so is Bourbon Barrel Quad. And back in 2014, early 2014, I was at a place in West Palm Beach, Florida called the Dixie Bar and Grill, I think. Very unusual place that is very kitschy. Like hanging from the ceiling throughout the restaurant are old metal mailboxes. Not mailboxes, lunch boxes from the 70s with all the old designs from the lunch boxes you could get back then.
Oh, nice.
And so the whole place is covered in stuff like that. And we sat down for dinner. We were down visiting my mom in Florida at the time, and they had a beer on the menu that said Boulevard Brewing Smokestack Series Bourbon Barrel Quad, and the labeling was all completely different back then. I think it was pretty new beer. It was certainly the first time I had ever seen it or heard of it, but it was in a big bottle, like a bomber bottle. And no one with me was going to drink that beer. So I was reading it and I'm like, oh man, bourbon barrel aged quad. I need that. I was like, but I'm going to drink that whole beer by myself, big bottle. And my wife, the hero that she is, was like, well, I'll drive. It's like, all right, cool.
Sold.
So that was my first time with bourbon barrel quad, and it's a great beer. And to go back and give a little bit of color to a couple things we mentioned, in case people haven't yet Googled them. I mentioned North Coast Brewing is in, I think, Fort Bragg, California. They make Brother Thelonious. And we mentioned Jessup's Tavern, which is a great little restaurant in Newcastle, Delaware. It's like colonial style tavern. It's been there, I guess the building at least has been there since colonial times. But they're just packed with Belgian beer. They have a massive beer menu, great place for beer. The food's really good. It's a fun place. We try to get down there, I guess, at least once a year at this point. Very cool place if anybody gets a chance to check them out.
I will add to this that you should not go there. It creates lines and difficulty for us getting in. And
That's right. Don't go there.
It does.
At least don't go there in January.
In fact, I'm pretty sure.
And since I mentioned
they closed.
Rumspringer, it's Broad Street Brewing, which is local to
They're
us
in,
here in
yeah, Bristol,
Philadelphia.
Pennsylvania. I like
Mhm.
how the Rumspringer becomes Rumspringer in Scott's little bit of New York accent that he
I'm
still
from
has retained.
Queens. I've been living here a long time, and my New York accent is certainly not as bad as many other people. But I will
Or
work it in
good.
here and there.
Right. Well, rum Springer is for when you run out of soda.
Right. All right, so
Yes.
on to number two. The second category
Uh-huh.
is the first beer you ever had, and again, I've made a video specifically about the first beer I ever had. I've talked about it a little bit here and there. There's a glass for it up behind me, which these guys can't see because the camera's not reaching up that high. Genesee Cream Ale, which is from Rochester, New York, still has a very dedicated following. People spot that glass on the shelf behind me and comment on it all the time. Um, uh, Good solid cream ale, tastes exactly like you'd expect it to. I was pretty young when I first tasted it, and it was in that green can. I just kind of remember it vividly. There you go. Scott, what do you got?
Well, what I got is long-term memory loss, and I really don't know what my first beer was. I'm sure I was too young to be drinking beer. I was probably in middle school. We called it junior high school because, again, I'm from New York. But so I don't remember. I remember, of course.
Mine was intermediate school.
Yeah, well, there you go. See, you know what? I went to IS 25, so there you go. That's in Queens. So I guess that was intermediate. We called it junior high school though, in the the teen lingo. But I we used to drink hard liquor before we actually started drinking beer, which is an odd thing. I think maybe there were a lot of kids like that because beer is an acquired taste for a lot of people. But putting a little vodka in orange juice, you won't really taste it. And so I really don't know what it was, except I was like, oh, I'm not sure I like this, but I'm supposed to. So I don't know about the first beer I drank. I do know that when I was young and starting to drink more, I was drinking what I think people with our beer taste would think are really pretty bad beers. I was drinking a lot of Coors Light, probably because it tastes like water. There's not much going on. I mean, I know I don't like it. I know you don't like it, but it's also kind of non-offensive in that way, in that it doesn't really taste like anything, and so you could drink like 12 of them, and And so at that age, I know you've made videos before. Of course, we've talked about it, that you acquired sort of a taste for good beer, at a younger age than some other people, I think. I did not. I was like, how many of these things can I drink, and how much, how wild can we get, and all of that. So I don't have a first beer. I have a lot of probably more or less crappy beer. But I think the first time I became aware of good beer, and again, it's funny because I consider myself to be a weirdly obsessed beer snob to some degree now, and maybe compared to present company, not that bad. But um, when I look back at it, I think that the first beer I recognized as being like, oh, this is a good beer, was Bass Ale. It's from England. It's the
Mhm.
oldest brewery, at least it says that on the packaging, and it tasted like something. It tastes like a lot less than the kind of things that I typically like to drink now. But I remember thinking, ooh, and in preparation for this, I looked up the price and I'm like, it's so inexpensive. At
Yeah.
the time, it seemed like fancy beer, but of course now I'm getting beers that are fancier.
Yeah, I remember drinking Bass Ale years and years ago, and it was in that category, just like when I started trying the Canadian beers, where it seemed like it was a little bit better, than the crappy stuff that was cheap here. They still make Bass Ale. I think they had stopped making it for a while, and it's still made, but I could be entirely wrong about this, and I hate being wrong, so don't hold me to this, but I believe it's still made. I think it's made in the U.S. I don't even know that it's available in the UK. But
I looked
yeah,
it up before we were going to have this discussion on, and Beer Advocate has it listed in various ways as discontinued and then recontinued, and so I think I don't know anything about this, but it may be there's someone out there trying to cash in a little bit on the oldest brewery name, that
right.
kind of thing.
Okay, Andrew, first beer you ever had?
Well, I'll lead in by saying you learn stuff about people all the time. Scott, we have something in common. The first thing I really drank wasn't beer, it was tequila. I lived in San Diego. was a long time ago, and it was what was available to be stolen from a neighbor's dad. So that's what we had. Turns out the beer that I first had, also stolen from the same neighbor's dad in the same place. It was actually kind of a mixture of two. They weren't mixed together. And I was thinking about what it was. It was, we had Budweiser and, if I remember right, Michelob. Um, when I was much younger, I lived in Pennsylvania, and a friend's dad had a kegerator in their basement. He had a whole bar, he had a pool table. We would like steal a sip. I have no idea what it was. Um, and it wasn't, I didn't think it tasted good. We did it because,
You're not supposed to.
it was
Right.
fun and dangerous. But it was Budweiser and Michelob. And I remember thinking they were fine. Um, Much like you guys, I shouldn't have been drinking it for several years or many years after I actually did. But I didn't, you know, I didn't really think much about it because my lead in was tequila and vodka before that. So when I drank beer, I thought like this is just like bad soda. Um, and that's not to say that I wouldn't. I'd certainly drink Budweiser, certainly drink Michelob now. I would taste them differently than I did back then, but that was it. It was very simple, and it was what was available when somebody's parents were away.
Andrew, I think you're making a really interesting observation. At that age, we were not drinking for the same reasons. At least I wasn't, for the same reasons that I'm drinking now. I'm really enjoying the taste of this rye on rye. It is 13%. I'm sure I'm feeling it a little bit, but I'm not going to have a second one. I'm going to be, sort of just hanging out and relaxing. But back then, it was, we were too young to be drinking. It wasn't legal, so it was, what could we do? How could we get away with this? What's strong? And I remember it might have been as early as 8th grade, doing shots of something like Southern Comfort. There's no reason. There is no reason to be doing that kind of thing. And I imagine a lot of people have their own teenage version of something like that. That's not my approach now. I want to enjoy a good beer. Back then, I wasn't as into beer, partly because you had to drink a whole 12 ounces in order to, feel like an idiot.
Right. Every day somebody asks me, well, do you ever get drunk? And no, it's not a goal. It's not something I want to do. It's not something that I do. I genuinely drink beer because I like it. I like what it tastes like. I drink beers that I like. I don't often drink beers that I don't like. Every once in a while, you run into one that you don't like much. But yeah, the goals are certainly different at this point. It's funny, Andrew, I remember back to, they don't make regular Michelob anymore, and it's been a lot of years since they have. But I have this vague recollection of college, maybe my freshman year in college, when I never liked Budweiser. I never liked the taste of Budweiser. But I remember thinking that Michelob was better. And it's funny because Michelob Ultra, I don't know if it has anything in common with the old Michelob. I don't like Michelob Ultra at all. And if I would taste regular Michelob now, I don't know what I would think of it. But I remember thinking then that it was better than
Give it a shot.
They don't make it anymore. It's been years, I think. And it also had that cool shaped bottle.
That. Okay.
Yeah.
That Michelob did.
Yeah.
It is funny how our perspective on what quote unquote is a good beer or fancy beer changes. When I was a kid, I thought Molson Golden was like really high end fancy beer because my dad drank. He was not much of a beer drinker. He wasn't someone who always had Budweiser in the house. So, and I tasted a little bit the way sometimes kids do when their dads let them taste their beer. And somehow in my head, it was like, ooh, Molson Golden, fancy. And of course, maybe it was. Maybe they marketed that way a little bit. Maybe in comparison,
it was imported, right? So that made it different.
Look, it's kind of like Heineken.
Right.
Ooh, this is we're going to put a star on it. This is fancy. And when you start drinking some of the kind of beers that we like, some of that in retrospect is pretty funny.
Definitely. I said that when you were talking about Bass, I said drinking like Canadian beers. That was it. That was, again, freshman year, we would sit around and we would play cards, and everybody had, at Penn State, it was Busch. Bush beer. That was what everybody bought. And but I was, now we couldn't buy it. We had friends buying it for us, but I would buy Molson or Moosehead or one of those things, thinking that this is a little better than that, right? And so, and I could still afford it. So, yeah.
It's funny you mentioned Bush, because you sparked a memory. When I was an undergrad at the University of Miami, which is probably 1989 to the early 90s, I have a distinct memory of buying case after case, or having someone else buy for me case after case of Bush Light, and we would just and
Yeah.
you would just drink far too much of it. You would certainly, it wasn't weak by the time you got to the eighth one. You would drink a lot of these
Right.
beers, but
Right.
the idea of that being the way I would consume beer now is just laughable, obviously.
Yeah. Our cheap cases of beer were Schaefer.
Mickey's Big Mouth.
Oh, Mickey's. That's terrible.
I don't know. Mickey's Big Mouth, I'll say, was my first IPA, because that was the first thing I drank when I went like,
I think they
wow.
called that
And I'll
a
get to
malt
IPAs
liquor.
later.
Mickey's. I think
Mickey's,
so.
I don't know, but it was Canadian, and people were like, it's got a big opening so you can drink it really
Yeah.
fast, which is not something I particularly try to spot in the store right now.
Back then, that was a
If
feature.
I want to drink something fast, I'll put it in a
Yeah.
glass. It was. But it seemed, it's really unusual and different. That and Heineken, of course, who they must be fancy. They sponsor Formula One. It's right on their broadcast booth and everything. But yeah, it's, having some of those beers that we might not be able to get now, it would be interesting to revisit, to go like, what was I tasting back then? Like, I have a memory of what I think it was.
Are they even made it?
It's
But
probably
are
not
they
that
even made
accurate.
the same now? Like, can you even do that?
No idea. No idea. It's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so we're like 30 minutes in, and we've only been through 2 categories. So we're going to hit the next ones a little quicker. The third one is a style of beer you really don't like. This I like everything else. I'm getting close to my 1,000th video coming up, so I've talked about, seems like, just about everything. It's hard to hit something I haven't made a video about. But I talked about smoked beers being a style that I don't like. I know, Andrew, you said you do like them. I have found some where they're not as in your face with the smokiness, and I like the little touch of smokiness in some beers. But the ones that are just flat out smoked beers, it's not an experience that I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think, Andrew?
Now, these aren't particular styles, but I have regularly not liked anything that I've tried. I tried alcohol-free beer. Um, uh, it's not a style. I'd say any style in alcohol-free. Just something was a little bit lost in it for me. I've tried a few gluten-free beers. Maybe I haven't had a good one. We got one to try a month or two ago, and literally we drank it, we shared it, and we're like, someone managed this and was responsible for this, and that we don't know why. But if there's a style maybe that I typically don't like, I would equate it to sort of like a hot sauce that's just all heat and no flavor. Like, this hot sauce is great, but what somebody might be saying is making it great is how much it burns your mouth, not how it actually tastes. And for me, an equivalent are gimmicky beers where they're all about like, hey, look, this tastes like something, and it's all that, and it tastes terrible. Or certain, and probably a lot, IPAs that are just all hop. Like, oh my god, it's so hoppy. It's 3,000
IBUs
on the IBU scale, and you're like, great. Well, so I've just had a whole glass of hops. I don't know what else was in there, but it was so maybe bitter, or so, I don't want to drink pine cone tea. I do like a lot of IPAs, but the ones that are just, hey, look how hoppy we can make this, seem a little bit um, uh, off point for me. That's a style
There was a
I don't
stretch
go
of
out of my way
time
to
like
find.
20 years ago where places like when IPAs were really booming and there was a stretch where every brewery was trying to make something that would just blow your face off, with
Uh-huh.
bitterness. Yeah, I never went for those either. So what do you think, Scott? What do you got?
Well, well, I'm gonna detour and say that my answer is going to be many IPAs, but I'm going to start with a lot of sours are just too sour. It's a silly thing to object to. Like if you like sours, I guess it being sour is good. I enjoy some sours, and many times I enjoy a sour on the first sip or second sip. But after like several sips in, I'm like, you know what? This is probably too sour. I don't need that. But my answer is, I think there are too many IPAs. This is my old man opinion. I think is what this is. There are just too many of them, and it's not that. I find some I do like, and when I'm at a place where that's the only option, I will try and find one that I will enjoy. But I feel like some of them are trying to. I think Andrew defined it, but they're trying to sort of show off their IPA-ness rather than be whatever it is they
Yeah.
are. And I do have some that I remember liking. It's been a long time, but I think I liked the fresh squeezed IPA from Deschutes. I mean, there were some I liked. I've had a Voodoo Rain, the Voodoo, the popular Voodoo one. I mean, I've had them, and I will sometimes drink them. But
Mhm.
I had Wrench recently, which was by who's that?
Industrial arts.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
fine. But I don't usually find myself in a circumstance where when I have other options, that's what I'm going to buy.
Sure. Yeah, I get that. I mean, if you like, you like fresh squeezed, then I can. There's a whole giant category of beers that you would probably like because they're similar to that. But I get it, and I hear that from so many people about, frustration with, either breweries or restaurants where the whole beer list is some version of an IPA.
Yep.
And yet so many places, there's a lot of places that really made their names on IPAs, and they're big fans that when they used to have lines out the door for some new release, it was generally an IPA. And I think places know that they will sell them, if they make them. And obviously these guys are in need to stay in business in order to make us beer. So it's, yeah, there's a challenge there. I certainly love when you can get, like, how unusual is this? Like Weyerbacher from Easton, Pennsylvania. Their year-round beers are not IPAs. There's a triple and there's a barley wine
And there's
and
a
they're like,
quad. They're
and there's a
fantastic.
quad, right? These are their year-round beers, and I don't know how. I know they've had some struggles over the years, and their ownership has changed a couple of times, but they've managed to stay around, still make really good beer, and their year-round list has not changed, and they're not making IPAs. I mean, they make some IPAs, sure, but those aren't their featured beers. Yeah, I love when I see stuff like that. I wish there were more of it, but I also know that, again, these guys they gotta, if they can't stay in business, then they can't make the beer that I do like. So, if something I don't like
Mhm.
is keeping the lights on, well, keep making that other thing. And,
Oh, yeah.
in the end, I've learned to like so many things that I didn't think I liked.
I don't begrudge anyone enjoying whatever it is they enjoy. I know what I don't like.
Yep. All right. So
Definitely.
along the lines of what you do enjoy, so I said a style of beer that you want to try more of. There are. This is a challenging question for me because I feel like I try so many things so often. I've tried to really branch out and go into areas where the things that I wouldn't necessarily think that I would like, and I find that I do like them. But as far as the category, actually, you mentioned it earlier, and it's not so much that I expect to love this; it's that there's so much of it happening right now that I want to try more, and it is non-alcoholic beer. I see that more and more places are making non-alcoholic beer. Apparently, the younger people are looking for options like that. They don't necessarily want alcohol, but they want something they can drink socially. and I'm getting more and more non-alcoholic beer sent to me. Um, and they're starting to do. It's not just, hey, here's our NA, beer in quotes, and that's it. Like now they're making all different styles of beer in non-alcoholic varieties. I just received a pack of an Oktoberfest non-alcoholic beer from Founders, and and I've got this
That's
other, like
interesting.
several sets of stuff where there's really interesting styles of beer that they're making. I haven't tried them yet. I want to try them. I want to see what they're like, and I don't want to write them off out of hand. I want to learn more about them. Andrew, what do you want to try more of?
Well, uh, reflecting back to just a little while ago, smoky beers. I do like smoky beers. I haven't had many. The first one I had was, I believe, brewed by Horseheads Brewing in and it's in New York. I think they're in Elmira, and I didn't know it would be smoky. We had gone up to Watkins Glen. We were getting lunch, and I wanted to order beer. It sounded good. And it didn't say anything about being smoky, and I took a couple sips, and it was like a forest fire. Now, I think maybe it really struck me that way because it was the first time I had had a smoky beer, and I tend to like smoky stuff, you know, smoky, hard alcohol, unless it's
Like a mezcal or
unnecessarily
a
smoky.
scotch or
I
something
tend to
like
like that
that.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so what I'm hoping is to find more smoky beers to try out. Um, we live in New Jersey, as you guys are aware, and the selection isn't as broad as it is in Pennsylvania, but they also don't seem to rotate new stuff in as frequently, at least in southern New Jersey. So assuming I won't be able to find a whole bunch of variety of that, barley wines and triples. I think I've had more of those with you guys than anyone else, or anywhere else really. Um, Barley wines until recently have been limited to like two different ones near where I am. So I've had them elsewhere. Here, they're starting to filter in a little bit more. So when I see it, I'll usually try it. I do love them. High ABV is great as long as it's balanced. And triples, I haven't had a lot of. I do love them. It's one of my favorite beers, triple Carmelit. And if I can find more of those, different things to try uh, that are different than the ones I've had. That's what I'm hoping to find. Not that obviously what I've had has been bad, just to broaden my experience of having those.
Awesome. Scott?
I think I'd go with barley wines. I haven't had many of them. I find them interesting though. I enjoy Blithering Idiot from Weyerbacher. There's one from
Mhm.
is it? I don't know if I'm going to pronounce it incorrectly because, as we have already established, I'm from Queens. But is it Combs or Comez? The one from Poland.
Poland. Yeah. I
Comus?
always say Comus. I'm not really sure the correct pronunciation, actually.
They used to
I
have a
think it's
variety
Comus.
pack I would get at a local beer store that had four different kinds of their beers. All of them were
Yep.
really good, and one of them was barley wine, which I really liked, but I
Yeah,
hadn't
it's
been
really
able to
good.
find it. And of course, there I assume many other barley wines out there, including one I really did not like, Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada, which it turns out is really really hoppy.
It
It's just
is.
not my style.
That's the difference between an American. I'm not. I don't just mean one from this country, but the style of American barley wine versus English barley wine. The American barley wines
Hmm.
tend to be hoppy. A Bigfoot from Sierra Nevada is very, very hoppy. Um, I like it, but it's a very hoppy flavor.
So I think
Hmm.
more English barley wines, fun variations on it. I'm always up for trying that.
Hmm. I think Comus was one of the first one or two that I could actually find around here. Um, in fact, I'll just say that it apparently barley wine was even relatively unknown to people working in liquor stores because I would go in and they'd say, "Oh, let's check it out," and walk me to the wine section. So, um, And these are places that have a good array of other kinds of beers, and even they had no idea what
That,
it was. So it's picking up a little
yeah,
bit,
that's
but
another thing people say to me sometime in the comments when I talk about barley wines, and they're saying, "Well, that's not beer." I'm like, "It's a style of beer. It's just the name. It's not wine. Barley wine is just the name of the style."
it's beer.
Yeah, I've said several times in different things, videos, podcasts that I feel quite sure, not quite sure, but somewhat confident. Maybe that's a little different. That I have talked more about the style of beer known as barley wine than anybody in the history of the internet. I talk about it a
I
lot.
believe that.
It's my favorite style. I, I I talk about it a lot. All right, so to wrap it up, our last category is your death row beer. And this was one I made my death row beer video. It's a good long while ago. It was a video that a lot of people saw. And my concept behind it was not so much like you would think, well, it'd be your favorite beer, right? This was you're on death row. And on death row, you get your last meal. That's at least that from television or movies or whatever. And you always see people chose like lobster tail and whatever. They chose some fancy thing. So my thinking was, all right, my
Mm.
death row beer would be something that not only do I really want to have, but it's something that should cost these jerks a whole bunch of money who are about to put me to death, right? So I was like, well, what would I choose? And at the time, I hadn't had it yet, and it was right there on the shelf behind me, Samuel Adams Utopias,
Uh-huh.
because this was this crazy beer. It's in a really cool bottle. It at the time, the one that was out was 28% alcohol, which couldn't hurt if they're about to kill you, right? And it costs hundreds of dollars for a 750 milliliter bottle. So it seemed like the perfect thing to ask for. The extra special bonus that came from making that video was I made the video, and Samuel Adams, who makes the beer, contacted me and said, "Hey, can we send you one?" I was like, "No, don't do that." Yeah,
No.
so they did. It's an amazing beer. I have the 2025 version behind me as well. That one's 30%. It's not a beer like experience. It's much more like drinking some sort of whiskey or brandy. It's very strong. There's quite a burn to it. It's really interesting though, and when you read about how they make it, it's a pretty fascinating thing. I've had other beers also that have been aged in Utopia's barrels, which there's something sort of meta about that. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I like it. It was very cool. Scott, what would be your death row beer?
I love this because the only reason I've tried Utopia is you let me try it because you had it. I would never be able to access that beer, and I do like that beer a lot. But the idea of drinking more than a few sips of it, you know, I wouldn't make it. So the execution would happen under unconscious circumstances. I guess we're assuming that I'm on death row, but I'm innocent because I don't like the idea that I've done anything really bad. I think what I would choose is Dragon's Milk Triple Mash.
Good one.
Hmm.
I somehow discovered Dragon's Milk kind of on my own, even though we're always all exchanging beer information. I don't know how. I can't remember how I discovered it, but I like dragons. I played D&D as a kid. I don't know. Somehow I came across Dragon's Milk, and I'm like, this looks cool, and I really enjoyed it. And then whatever year it was, I mean, I know they do a different one each year, I guess, but whenever they decided we're going to make one that's like, is it 20% or 18 or 30 or
Mhm.
it's insane.
It
Whatever it
was
is, it's wrong.
19 point something, I think, was that 2024 one, which is the first one that I had.
And under normal circumstances, you should not drink a whole glass of this. I mean, people should know this, right? I mean, let's be responsible out here. But given the context that we're choosing, I think you need a good buzz going in. And it's just delicious. This is not a beer you chug. One of the things about all the beers I've been talking about tonight, whether it's Rye and Rye or Bourbon Barrel Quad, and even more so Dragon's Milk, is you go slow. You take your time, and these beers tend to taste different and better as they warm.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
And so I can see myself with a glass again, not on death row because come on, man, I didn't do it, but a
Plus,
glass,
you want to get it all in before they
right?
wheel you down,
But a
right?
glass of Dragon's Milk triple mash, I could see myself spending 2 hours drinking that, nice and easy, and it would be
Mhm.
delicious.
And they'd have to give you the time to let you finish it, right?
I I, I would imagine because why not?
Maybe.
And you'd say, "Oh, no, hold on. I still got a sip left." It's like when the waiter tries to pick up your
Right,
glass and
right,
there's
Well,
still a little bit in
right.
there. I think that cost me $12.
yeah, yeah. I have a PDF of the regulations, so I'll send you guys a copy.
Cool.
Thanks.
We'll
So,
know for
Andrew,
sure.
what's your death row beer?
Well, I'll say yes, Alan. I appreciate the times we've gotten together and shared great stuff. One of which was those. That's the Sam Adams is an amazing thing. It's complex. You have to kind of think about it a little bit while you're drinking it to find everything in there. And I love that. I love that it's strong. I love that it was delicious. Um, I like Scott's answer about not having done anything. I can think of plenty of stuff I'd like to do that that I probably wouldn't end up on death row, but maybe with a citation or something. Um, uh, for me, this was kind of tough because it was a decision between a beer that's sentimental and that brings back a really good memory or something that makes me feel really good, which it might be that Cronenberg, the 1664, just because of the time that I had it. My family was together. We were in Copenhagen. It was just a beautiful time and a beautiful day. So it was between that and something that I didn't necessarily know. I said, all right, what do I kind of like? What I'm into right now? I love good Hefeweizens. They're not typically that strong. I thought, oh, let me see if there's a 18% Hefeweizen. I guess there isn't. If anyone out there knows of one,
I've never heard of a really strong
let me know.
Hefeweizen. They're by
No,
nature are not. Yeah.
no, but so the brewery makes something called Ride That Goat. This is something I landed on. Ride That Goat. It's a Weizenbach, which brings me back to the beer I'm drinking today. Weizenbach. Don't remember if I've had one. I'm enjoying it. It's very good. So I think it was a good shot. It said it has banana. It has clove. I like that. I don't want to taste like I'm eating a pack of Jakartas for anyone who knows what those are. They're clove cigarettes. But when these things are balanced, they're fantastic. I love clove. I love banana. Um, this one, it's a 13%. It also was described, besides having banana and clove, chocolate, malt, vanilla, caramel, and coconut. Now, at first, I'm like, it seems like it might be a little syrupy. Based on what I read, and I'm going to try to find this. I don't, in a quick search, I couldn't find it near me. Was that it was reviewed by some people who said brewery make some things that were pretty sweet, and they expected this to be also, and it wasn't. It was really it was balanced, but without having a lot of sugary or syrupy properties to it. It just sounded great. So for me, it's I'll let you know if I end up on death row which one of those I decide to have. But I think it's probably the sentimental one. But I do really want to try something. Um, it, I also love Hefeweizen. It's something that I always. Um, I think it's just a beautiful balance when it's balanced. I've had very clovey Hefeweizen. I'll drink it. I still like it. Uh, but some of the other descriptions of it sounded great, and I know the brewery has a pretty good reputation.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, I think we'll wrap it up here. That was fun. I appreciate it. I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I enjoyed having you here.
Well,
Thank
thanks
you.
for having us.
All right, and
Thanks.
I'll talk to you later.
All right. see,
All right.
see you around.
So long.
So thanks so much to Andrew and Scott for coming on the podcast today. I always have fun with those guys. Thanks for listening. Like, follow, or subscribe, and please leave a review or a comment. I really appreciate you all being here. Come back for the next one, and in the meantime, watch my videos each day on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, or Facebook. Cheers.